The galaxy had a memory problem. Empires rose, burned bright, and collapsed into dust. Wars erupted, ended, and were forgotten within a few generations. Entire species vanished, their histories reduced to fragments buried in drifting archives no one bothered to read. But humanity remembered everything. And that was why the galaxy would come to fear them. It began with a mistake. At the edge of a quiet spiral arm, in a system considered insignificant, a young species had just begun to stretch beyond its home world. Their ships were crude, their technology uneven, their politics chaotic. They called their world Earth. To the Dominion, a vast and ancient alliance of species, Earth was nothing more than a footnote. A developing civilization, decades away from being worth noticing. Unfortunately, someone noticed anyway. A scouting fleet, tasked with mapping new trade routes, passed through the system. They detected artificial satellites, signals, primitive defenses. They also detected something else: rare mineral deposits beneath Earth's crust, valuable enough to justify immediate extraction. Protocol required observation. Greed chose otherwise. The decision was made quickly, quietly, and without debate. A single strike would neutralize the species. Extraction teams would follow. No one would question it. No one ever did. After all, the Dominion had done this before. The attack lasted 6 hours. At first, humanity didn't understand what was happening. Their skies lit up with streaks of fire that were not meteors. Their satellites blinked out one by one. Communications collapsed into chaos. Then the bombardment began. Cities vanished in flashes of light. Oceans boiled in places where energy weapons struck deep. Entire regions were erased from existence before anyone could respond. Humanity fought back, but it was like throwing stones at a storm. Their missiles failed to reach orbit. Their aircraft were shredded before they climbed high enough to engage. The defenses, built for wars among themselves, were useless against an enemy that never even entered their atmosphere. 6 hours. That was all it took to end the world as humanity knew it. And then, the Dominion left. No occupation, no explanation, no survivors counted. To them, it was just another completed operation. But they made one critical error. Humanity did not die. Beneath the surface of Earth, in bunkers built for different wars, fragments of civilization endured. Military installations, research facilities, emergency shelters, scattered pockets of survivors clung to life in the ruins. The world above them was broken. The air was poisoned. The infrastructure gone. But the species remained. And humanity adapted. The first years were not about revenge. They were about survival. Food had to be grown in artificial environments. Water purified. Medicine improvised. Knowledge preserved. Entire generations grew up never seeing the sky, hearing stories of oceans and forests like they were myths. Humanity could have fractured. It almost did. Old divisions tried to resurface. National, cultural, ideological. But they quickly lost meaning. The attack had not discriminated. It had not chosen sides. Everyone had been a target. And that changed something fundamental. For the first time in their history, humanity was united by a single, undeniable truth. They had been attacked by something beyond their world. And they would never let it happen again. The shift began quietly. Scientists who once competed began to collaborate. Engineers shared designs across former borders. Military doctrines evolved. Not to fight each other, but to prepare for an enemy that could strike from orbit without warning. They studied everything they could recover. Fragments of alien technology from impact sites. Residual energy signatures. Data captured in the final moments before satellites were destroyed. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Decades passed. Earth slowly healed. Not back to what it had been, but into something new. Artificial ecosystems replaced lost ones. Cities were rebuilt underground and later, cautiously, on the surface. But the most important changes were not visible. They were in orbit. At first, humanity's return to space was tentative. Small stations, experimental craft, then larger ships. better defenses, smarter systems. They learned fast, faster than anyone had expected. Because for humanity, space was no longer a frontier. It was a battlefield waiting to happen. 100 years after the attack, humanity left its system. Not as explorers, as something else. The first contact came unexpectedly. A merchant vessel from a minor species encountered a human ship near a remote trade route. The human vessel did not attack. It did not flee. It simply observed. The merchant reported everything. The ship's design, its silent movement, the way it seemed to watch without revealing intent. The report reached the Dominion. At first, it was dismissed. Impossible. That system had been cleared. The species eliminated. Records confirmed it. Case closed. But then came another report. And another. Human ships, appearing at the edges of known space. Not many. Never aggressive. Always watching. The Dominion began to pay attention. Investigations were launched. Old records reviewed. And slowly, the truth emerged. The species from Earth had survived. The Dominion's reaction was not fear. It was irritation. A mistake, yes, but a minor one. A remnant population that had somehow endured. It could be corrected. This time, properly. A fleet was assembled. Not a small one. A demonstration. They never reached Earth. The battle took place in deep space, far from any inhabited system. The Dominion fleet entered the region expecting little resistance. Their sensors detected a handful of human ships. Insignificant. They advanced. And then the stars went dark. Humanity had learned. They had studied not just the technology of their attackers, but their behavior. Their assumptions. Their overconfidence. The Dominion relied on overwhelming force and predictable tactics. So humanity gave them something they had never faced before. Uncertainty. The first strike didn't come from the ships in front of them. It came from everywhere. Hidden vessels decloaked behind the fleet. Mines activated in carefully calculated patterns. Energy signatures flared from positions that had appeared empty seconds before. The Dominion's formations broke instantly. Commands were issued, countermeasures deployed, but nothing behaved as expected. Human ships moved differently. They didn't follow standard engagement protocols. They didn't hold formation. They didn't retreat when outmatched. They adapted in real time. The battle lasted minutes. The outcome was decisive. Not a single Dominion ship returned. The galaxy noticed. Panic didn't spread immediately. Information moved slowly across vast distances. But when the reports were confirmed, when the wreckage was analyzed, when the data was verified, something shifted. A species once considered primitive had destroyed a Dominion fleet. Completely. Without warning. Without negotiation. Questions were asked. Who were these humans now? What did they want? Why hadn't they announced themselves? Humanity did not answer. Instead, they expanded. Carefully. Quietly. System by system. They avoided inhabited worlds. Ignored trade routes unless necessary. Built stations in remote regions. Established supply lines no one could trace completely. They were not conquering. They were preparing. Other species began to reach out. Some out of curiosity. Others out of fear. A few out of hope. Messages were sent. Offers of alliance, trade, communication. Most received no response. The few that did were simple. Direct. Unemotional. We remember. That was all. The Dominion, however, understood. Or at least, it began to. Deep within its archives, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and time, the record of the attack on Earth was uncovered in full detail. A minor operation. Unauthorized deviations from protocol. A decision made for profit, not strategy. 6 hours of destruction. No follow-up. No confirmation of total extinction. A mistake. A small one. At the time. Now, it had become something else. The Dominion faced a problem it had never encountered. An enemy that did not forget. An enemy that did not forgive. And an enemy that had spent a century preparing for exactly this moment. Attempts were made to negotiate. Envoys were sent, carefully chosen, carrying offers of reparations, apologies, integration. Humanity listened, and then declined. Their response was consistent. You had your chance to speak. The first Dominion world fell without warning. There was no bombardment, no dramatic fleet arrival. One day, the planet's defenses simply stopped working. Power grids failed. Communication systems went silent. Orbital platforms went dark. And then human ships appeared. Precise, controlled, efficient. They disabled military infrastructure with surgical accuracy. Avoided civilian targets. Secured key locations. Within hours, the planet was under their control. No mass destruction. No slaughter. Just control. A message was broadcast, not just to the planet, to the entire Dominion. We are not you. We remember what you did. And we choose not to become it. But understand this. We will never forget. It was not revenge in the way the galaxy understood it. It was something colder, more deliberate. Humanity did not seek to destroy the Dominion. They sought to dismantle it. Piece by piece. Over the following years, more worlds fell. Always the same pattern. Disable defenses. Seize control. Minimize casualties. Leave the population intact, but remove the structures that had enabled the original attack. Military leadership dissolved. Command systems replaced. Decision-making centralized under human oversight. Resistance formed, of course. It always did, but it struggled against an opponent that anticipated every move. Humanity had studied war, not just how to fight it, but how to end it. And through it all, they kept repeating the same message. We remember. Eventually, the Dominion collapsed. Not in fire, but in silence. Its member species were left to rebuild, this time without the hierarchy that had allowed such decisions to be made without consequence. Humanity did not claim the throne. They did not establish an empire. They withdrew, but not completely. They remained present, watching, ensuring. The galaxy learned, not quickly, not easily, but permanently. New alliances formed, this time with transparency. Decisions were debated, recorded, questioned. Smaller species were given voices they had never had before. And always, in the background, there was the quiet awareness of humanity. They did not interfere, unless they had to. Generations passed. Stories of the old Dominion became lessons, then warnings, then history. And the story of Earth. That one was never forgotten. It was taught in academies across the galaxy. A case study, a cautionary tale. Attack a developing species without cause, and you might win the battle. But you may create something that will outlast your entire civilization. Because humanity did not forget. They did not forgive, but they did choose. And that choice was what truly set them apart. They could have burned the galaxy. They had the power. They had the reason. But instead, they made sure no one would ever make the same mistake again. And in doing so, they became something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquerors, not saviors, something far more dangerous. Guardians with perfect memory, watching the stars, waiting, remembering,